The following pairs of compounds, each in aqueous solution, can be distinguished by simple test tube reactions. Give a reagent or combination of reagents that can be added to the solutions in each pair to distinguish between them in a single reaction. State what is observed in each case. So when you do these questions, what you want to spot is the thing that's changing. So here we've got sodium chloride and barium chloride. So really what we're trying to find is a test that can tell apart sodium ions and barium ions. And the test we want here is the test that will produce barium sulfate as a precipitate. So really we want any soluble sulfate. The common reagent to use would be sulfuric acid, but you could say use sodium sulfate here. Anything that contains sulfate that is soluble. So any group 1 sulfate would probably be fine. With sodium chloride, we'd see no visible change because sodium sulfate is soluble. But with barium chloride, we'd see a white precipitate because we'd be forming, you don't need to write this equation, but just for information, we would be making the barium ions react with the sulfate ions to make insoluble barium sulfate. And then our next test, the sodium's staying the same, but chloride versus carbonate. So what test would we use? Now we do need to be careful with this one because if we were to test for the chloride ions using silver nitrate, we would need to be careful because silver ions do actually react with carbonate ions to make silver carbonate, and that is a white precipitate, and then silver ions react with chloride ions to make silver chloride, which is a white precipitate. So if we were going to use silver nitrate, it would have to be acidified in order to remove carbonates before the silver ions tried to react. So that wouldn't be my choice. My choice would be to test for the carbonate ions. And to test for the carbonate ions, really, we can pick any acid. I'm going to pick sulfuric acid again, but I could use hydrochloric acid. There would be no visible change with the sodium chloride, but there would be some effervescence with the sodium carbonate. If you did use the acidified silver nitrate, you would get a white precipitate with the sodium chloride and effervescence with the sodium carbonate. So you couldn't just write no visible change for sodium carbonate because it would fizz, because you are removing the carbonates with the acidified part of the silver nitrate.